coming to the stage with a presentation about the digital transformation journey towards free and fair access to tech is Priscilla Chomba-Kinywa, Chief Technology Officer of Greenpeace International. A little bit about Priscilla. Priscilla is a digital transformation strategist and an ICT 4D expert, and has experience in technology and innovation spanning over 2 decades, and an absolute queen while doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Priscilla!
Hello, Amsterdam. Are you all ready for a party? I need Terrence to come back on, and I need you to turn on your torches. We're going to have a festival right here. I think Monique at the back is ready for us. Yes? Oh. I want you to listen to this song and just try and figure out what the title is. Let's go.
Shall we?
I knew you were a good dancer.
Okay.
Has anyone figured out the title of the song? Anybody? Thank you. Oh, he's going.
No, you get your presentation on.
Thank you, everyone, for indulging me. Does anybody in here know the title to that song? Anybody? Anybody? I can bet. What's the title to the song? I don't know whether I should laugh at that. Should say the title was Jumbo. It is not. But I know most of us don't know the title, but it doesn't really matter, because you know what? It's 2022, and we could just Shazam it. And if we really, really like it, we could Google who made the song. And then if we really, really, really like it, we could even stay online and translate all those lyrics from Swahili into English. So you were close with Jambo. It's in Swahili, but it's not Jambo. My father taught English for many years before he retired. And if you'd told him 20 years ago when he was teaching in Kitwe that let's Shazam it, or let's Google it, or I'll Uber there, or even she tweeted me, would be sentences in the English language, I can tell you you'd have failed that class. But technology has become such an important part of our day-to-day that we almost take it for granted. I already know all the tweets that will come out of this conversation that I'm having with you for my Kenyan and Zambian audiences who can't be here today. Most of us are here knowing that we have access to all the technology that makes our lives so much simpler. Every day, a business is being built, and every business is calling itself a technology company. And for good reason. Technology does a lot. I started with a simple example of Shazam, but we've done so much with technology, especially over the last few years. We've been able to call for medical help. Medicines have been delivered to our doors. We were able to work when there were lockdowns. Kids went to school. And so we tend to forget. We tend to forget that there are 2 billion people in the world that don't have access to the internet. In the United States of America, which we consider quite technologically advanced, 19 million people don't have access to broadband at threshold speeds. I come from a country where the total population is less than 19 million, so that number is quite significant to a Zambian like me. But I'll come back to the 2 billion that don't have access to the internet in a bit, because I'm very passionate about that conversation. But right now, what I want to talk about is all the other bits that we forget when we're designing our programs, when we're doing our digital transformation plans. Let me tell you a story. Circa 2014, I was a rising star in a big United Nations agency. Actually, maybe not rising star, a shining star, because we were already doing things. My title was Innovation Lead, which could mean anything or nothing. And I absolutely loved it, because what does an innovation lead do? You make stuff up. One of the things we made was an ultra-successful SMS platform that connected young people to information about sexual reproductive health rights. They could speak to counselors, trained counselors, 24 hours a day, but while they were having those conversations, we're also applying machine learning to a lot of what we're getting from there, using that information to then inform policymakers of what the conversations were and where they needed to change. So things like, oh, kids want condoms in schools. Of course, the government will listen if you tell them their future voting population is saying this. So it was successful. We were applying machine learning. We're doing artificial intelligence. It was wonderful. And so it was a given when the Ebola outbreak of 2014 as well in West Africa happened. It was a given that I hop onto a plane and go there and build the same thing for kids in Liberia. And so I hopped on a plane. My marching orders were very simple. Customize the same platform, launch it, have kids communicating about how they can prevent or slow down Ebola, hop back on a plane, continue to save the world one SMS platform at a time. And so I arrived in Liberia. 2 weeks in, we had all our software engineers on it. Platform was ready to launch. We sent out the first SMS. And what we got back were texts we could not understand. We sent the second message. Didn't understand anything that came back. By the third message, we realized we had a problem. You see, what I had failed to take into account is that that part of West Africa had been ravaged by a civil war some years before. When there's a civil war, one of the first things to go is education infrastructure. And so literacy levels were very low in the country. So when you send a text message in English, your audience doesn't know what you're talking about. And so that was a huge failure on my part. For me, that has been the biggest fail of my entire 20-year career. That thinking, that having that arrogance of leaving Zambia and thinking because this worked in this context, we can just transplant it and work somewhere else, is exactly what a lot of our businesses in this room are doing. We are designing for one small group of people in one context, and then we just pick it up, dump it somewhere else, and think that it will work. It will not work. And sure, we did the design with the user's principle, so we had like 30 Liberian kids who were helping us think through this. But we again did what tech companies do. We picked a self-selecting group of young people that could speak English already, that could read and write. And a lot of tech companies do the same thing. We send out a survey to the new market. It's a self-selecting group of people who are interested in your product, so they hype you, they give you all the, yes, this is great, it's going to work. We don't actively, deliberately look for those pockets that are not in our circles, the people who don't necessarily think like us. And so I really want to challenge you to start thinking about how do you deliberately find those voices that you normally would not. I'll tell you another story. I was working with a team on a charity program that was supposed to empower women. We would give them money, their kids would be fed, they would be healthier, and they would go to school. Life would be wonderful. But as soon as we did that, we sent the first batch of e-money to these women, cases of violence in their homes increased. A lot of violence started happening. What we hadn't done was think about how their husbands would react to them suddenly getting all this power, the financial power. We had to stop the whole project, go back, have conversations with their husbands included, and then we could continue. The program was very successful. But the learning from that was that we actually did more harm than good before it was successful. So I again want to challenge you to ask yourself, is the product you're designing or the service that you're designing likely to do more harm than good, even if well-intended? And the other thing, because I'm coming from Greenpeace International, I have to talk about this. How is your organization thinking about the impact of all this technology on climate? We have so many servers running on non-renewable sources of energy, nobody's thinking about it. We are storing extra large amounts of data that we'll never look at, just in case we need it one day. And of course, we can't solve this 100%. Nobody's asking us to. But we have to be deliberately thinking about, are we making steps? I really like that the organizers of this conference made the efforts. And this experience is great. Can I get a shout for the organizers? It's really great. So thinking about the future of our planet should not be a reason to take away from the experience. You can still design a good product, you can still design a good service, even while thinking about sustainability. Now, I'd promised that I'd go back to the 2 billion population that don't have access to the internet. So I'm taking it there now. And I know that you, who probably works for a tech startup that has more technology than you know what to do with, or maybe you, who's invested in a billion-dollar business that has more technology than anybody and you know how to use it, or maybe even you, who's just here to tweet all the nice moments from this conference, are wondering why you should care that 2 billion people don't have access to the internet. So I'll suggest a few reasons why you should care. The first one is that we all care about something. Everybody in this room cares about something. Most likely, the product or service you're trying to sell. And we've seen over the last few years that technology gives us the potential to take anything that we care about global. We saw what happened with the Me Too movement. We saw what happened with the Black Lives Matter movement that forced us to start having conversations not just about police brutality in the United States, but about globally, and especially companies, how we're looking at diversity, how we're looking at inclusion, how we're looking at racial equality. Without the power of the internet, I doubt that a small company in Central Europe or West Africa or Southeast Asia would have been thinking about their own biases, thinking about how they recruit diverse talent, thinking about how they retain that talent. And I think we all care about something. Maybe you could use the power of the internet to leverage your product going global. And you want that 2 billion to be a part of it. The other reason is because having access to the internet gives everyone a chance to have a voice in democratic conversations. And I know my American and my British friends are probably raising an eyebrow based on Brexit and Trump's shenanigans online, but that is still democracy, whether palatable or not. I know our systems are flawed, but it's what we have, and we have to make sure that everybody has the ability to take part in these conversations. Whereas before, political conversations were confined to the dinner table with our parents, and so we subscribed to whatever value systems and beliefs they subscribe to, we now have a chance to look through the information that's available, make sure that we're creating our own sets of values if they disagree with those of our parents. We have a voice. If I don't like a bill that's being put in Parliament, I, an ordinary person, not somebody on TV, not a newscast on radio, not somebody with access to editing an online magazine or whatever, I have a voice. I can start a conversation around that bill. And we've seen bills be reversed or rephrased or actually withdrawn to the betterment of citizens. And if you need a third reason why that 2 billion population is important, I'll give you a good one, because I know there are a lot of business people in here. The third one is money. Simply that, money. You see, in Africa alone, the internet penetration is only at about 40%. But that 40% is 600 million people. 600 million people is why Netflix and Spotify and all those others that ignored that market are suddenly investing millions of dollars to create relevant content that makes their viewership and listenership go up. So you want to have more people having access so that your business has more of a market. And if you're not about money, then impact. The more people you can affect by impact, the better the world will be. You don't want to be that founder or that investor that's catching up. And you will be playing catch up because entrepreneurs in these spaces are not waiting around for you. Take, for example, a Kenyan band called Sauti Sol. These guys are rock stars. They've written Grammy Award-winning songs, they have played on global stages, they've won multiple awards. They are now creating content for children of color because that's a gap in the market. So we've seen comic books, we've seen storybooks, we've seen music, we've seen events, and animations, and a few more things. And if you're about to invest in that space, you might be too late if you don't hurry up. I want you to think about what that potential that exists with that 2 billion is, because I haven't even covered Asia. I haven't talked about the number of people in Asia that could be covered. And of course, we all know that there are a lot of innovations that come from the global south, and things move a lot faster. Everybody looks at Silicon Valley or whatever little pockets we're in. But I remember in 2015 working for a Danish NGO, and I had just moved to Kenya from my home country. When I moved to Kenya and I wanted to buy tomatoes in the market, everybody would look at me like I'm from a different planet if I didn't have M-Pesa. In case you don't know what M-Pesa is, it's one of the largest mobile money platforms in the world. This was Kenya, in 2015. That same year, I went to Copenhagen. We were having a door-to-door fundraising thing. You carried a little box, people put cash in it. But because, again, I always create my own titles that make no sense. Again, I was called Global Advisor on Innovation and Tech. And because I had this big title, I was like, we're going to do this door-to-door, and we're going to make sure there's mobile money being given. And we went around door-to-door to many, many houses that day. We got a lot of cash, and whenever we asked for mobile money, nobody knew what I was talking about. This was Denmark in 2015, and I'd come from Kenya in 2015, where the guy that sells me corn by the side of the road could articulate why it's important and why it's safe and secure that I pay him via mobile money. So we need to start thinking about that 2 billion as potential areas for innovation that we can learn from. And one more, these areas, once connected, are host to massive talent, massive expertise that could help you avoid the problems, such as the one I had in Liberia. Because if you have local talent and local expertise, you can definitely get some of those insights that you as a foreigner can't figure out. I have a software engineer friend in Lusaka who works with American and European companies, and he brings more value than just the software engineering. He also brings to the table the local context, how his communities are interacting with the products, what can be changed, that sort of thing. And so I could go on into how we make sure that 2 billion are connected, but I cover it very extensively in my TED Talk from 2019, so I won't go into it. But I do want to leave you with a question, which is, how are you thinking about making sure that you're including those who are not included in various ways? There are so many different metrics when it comes to inclusion, so it would be good for you to start having those conversations, if not already. But I'm looking at my timer, and I need to go, so here's what we're going to do. I will take a selfie with all of you, so get your smiles ready, that I will tweet. You will Google the TED Talk that I just talked about, and the next time you Shazam that song, you will think about that 2 billion people that is not connected. Are you ready? Can you see me? I need some movement, like some hands in the air or something. Anything? Everybody ready? Yes, so much better. Thank you very much.